This is my fourth time being here and the third time that FPL has been a sponsor, and we're proud to do that. But because of that, I have this wonderful opportunity to introduce a powerhouse. Amen. You know, I was listening earlier today from the Nielsen ratings and the fact that everything now has a hashtag. Well, I came up with one for Madame Cathy Hughes. And that's hashtag MMM, Media Mogul Maven. Yes. Cathy Hughes, she is a dynamic media pioneer who demonstrates the power of one woman, one vision, one company, Radio One. She is the founder and chairperson of Radio One, the largest African-American owned and operated broadcast company in the nation. Cathy's unprecedented career has spawned a multimedia conglomerate that generates original content across the spectrums of radio, television, and digital media. Cathy came from humble beginnings in Omaha, Nebraska, but was undeterred. She was instead fueled by her challenges, which fed her ambition to empower African Americans with information and to tell stories from our perspective. Cathy began her radio career in her hometown, Omaha, Nebraska, at KOWH, a station owned by a group of African American professionals. And in 1971, she moved to Washington, D.C., and there it began. She became a lecturer in the newly established School of Communications of Howard University, and during her tenure, she served as sales manager for WHUR, Howard University Radio. And as April sang, there was no half-stepping. She raised the station's revenue from $250,000 to $3 million in her first year. So where do we sign up for that kind of blessing? This was a foreshadowing of her talent and golden touch. She became a trailblazer and accomplished many, many firsts. She became the first woman vice president and general manager of a station in the nation's capital and created the format known as Quiet Storm, which, I know y'all know that, right? Which revolutionized when radio and aired on over 480 stations nationwide. Then, in the early 80s, she went on to Next Level and purchased her first radio station, WOL-AM, in Washington, D.C. She pioneered yet another innovative format, 24-hour talk from a Black perspective. With the theme, Information is Power, she served the station's morning show as host for 11 years. The next first was in 1999. Cathy Hughes became the first African-American woman to chair a publicly held corporation following the sale of 7,150,000 shares of common stock to the public. Since that time, she, along with her son and business partner, Alfred Liggins, has grown Radio One into a multimedia company that an urban market leader with 56 stations comprised of our favorites, hip-hop, R&B, gospel, and talk radio formats. Radio One is the first African-American company in radio history to dominate several major markets simultaneously, and is the first woman-owned radio station to rank #1 in many major markets. Its success, yes, I agree, that deserves some applause and music. All right, so I wanted to tell you a few of her awards, and then we want to get on and hear from her because I know she has lots to share. She has received the ADC Color Lifetime Achievement Award, Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Chair's Phoenix Award, the NAACP Chairman's Award, and many others. So today, Radio One is the parent company for many subsidiaries which you'll recognize: TV One, Reach Media, Interactive One, One Solution. And she takes her brilliance and her earnings, and she is also philanthropic. And she is as much a philanthropist as she is a businesswoman. We are fortunate to have her, and I personally cannot wait to hear what she has to share. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Cathy Hughes.
First and foremost, I give praise and thanks to God, from whom all blessings flow. May I please get a big round of applause for the Creator. You know, one of the signs of aging is when your introduction gets longer than your speech. I'm going to have to do a boilerplate introduction and send it out. And now it's just time to hear our speech. I am so honored and humbled to be asked to spend some time this afternoon with all of you beautiful ladies. What an incredible event that I was not aware of until my birthday party earlier this year. So I'm thinking that Congressman L.C. Hastings is coming to my birthday party because it's in Miami, which is close for him. But then I realized I've invited him many times to things, and I should have known, being the great politician that he is. L.C. and I go back to when he was a judge. And I don't know if any of you remember, but I literally brought plane loads and bus loads of folks from the nation's capital down here for his first run for the U.S. Congress. I thought that what they had done to L.C. Hastings was unconscionable. He is, in my opinion, 3 of the smartest members of Congress. You all are very fortunate to have L.C. Hastings representing you. This brother is brilliant. And I don't know if any of you remember during his impeachment hearing that the main objection that Ted Kennedy had to L.C. Hastings was L.C. had a yellow pad, and he had taken these just impeccable notes. And Senator Kennedy had the nerve to say to this brother that no human being alive could write a whole yellow pad without one mistake. And that's when Senator Kennedy lost my support, because L.C. Hastings is not the only person of color, male or female, who can do their job without one mistake. It's very hard oftentimes for other cultures to really understand the depth of our greatness, the depth of our brilliance, the depth of our contribution to global society. This world would be a different place if God hadn't chosen to make the first black person on this planet, Eve, and put her in Africa. All right? We are the descendants of greatness. And sometimes that's a little hard for other folks to accept, but it's very important for us to know. So anyway, L.C. Hastings comes to the birthday party. So I'm feeling really special and say to him, you know, L.C., this is the first time you've ever accepted my invitation for dinner or anything? And he just kind of, So I was like, I don't like that. When politicians do that, and don't respond, there's something coming. So he said, have you ever met this sister named Bernadette Norris Weeks? She reminds me of you so much. I said, oh, no, I haven't. Should we meet? Oh, yeah, you need to meet. He said, do you know about the Women of Color Empowerment Institute? I said, no. He said, you need to get involved with that, Cathy. So the party went on. About 10 minutes later, here comes L.C. Oh, and by the way, they need for you to come to Fort Lauderdale in September, and they don't have a budget. So I said, L.C., anytime you ask me to do anything, I'll be happy to be here. So then Bernadette and I had our first telephone conference, and I was really excited to learn about the Women of Empowerment Institute, but I was really ecstatic to learn about this year's theme, building healthy relationships. Because if any of you in this room have ever listened to my radio show, heard any of my editorials, or watched any of my interviews on TV One, and by the way, Terry, girl, I'm hiring you as the pitch man for, okay? And that's what they're called, is pitch men, whether they male or female. You go, girl, you go, girl. I'm getting ready to fire my whole promotions team when I get back to New York. I got one sister who can do the job of all 13 of you all. You're terrific. You're absolutely, positively terrific. And sharp. Yeah, and April. Can we give April a round of that sister's voice? April Raquel. And before I start, Senator Pam, you gonna run again, I hope. All right, now I want everybody in here to make a commitment. We sending her to the United States Senate, okay? All right, no question about it. If I had known you were running, I might have brought some more busloads of folks from the nation's capital down here to help you. Yeah, you're dynamic. Such an incredible gathering. I have been on a mission of empowering my people since early childhood. I've been very blessed with a career that has always been mission-based, and it's always been about empowerment, which some of you, I see Busy Bee out there, and thank you, Busy Bee. I see you a sponsor girl. All right. We miss you in DC sponsoring stuff. Okay. But it's gotten me in a lot of trouble over the years, to be very honest with you. I've been considered controversial. I consider myself provocative. I have been described as confrontational. I consider myself just trying to set the record straight, particularly as it relates to us sisters. So I salute those of you here at this conference today, particularly Bernadette Norris Weeks, Cathy Eggleston, and Michelle Austin Pammies. May we please give them a big round of applause. Your vision, yes. Now, I'd like a commitment from each of you in this room, because some of you are saying it's your first time. We need to spread the word. This conference should be the biggest thing that takes place in the state of Florida. This should be the thing that we attend. I thank you also, Bernadette. One of my pet peeves, and what Elsie didn't know, is I stopped doing panels maybe about 7, 8 years ago. I've stopped doing keynotes because I'm learning a new career thanks to TV One, and I just completed my first movie, which will be out. I'm learning how to make movies. I'm really blessed that, and it's called Media. It'll be on TV One in January, but one of the things that I hate about keynotes is all that rattling of plates and things. Thank you for giving us entertainment while we ate. Because at most conferences, most luncheons and dinners you go to, check it out. They serve the food right as the keynote comes up. You can barely hear what they're saying. So I thank you. A lot of class, a lot of style at this conference, and I thank you for that very, very much. Yeah, that was very cool. I don't mind dessert, but by the time they go through the salad, the entree, and dessert, okay, your speech is over, and everyone's like, I'm like, I want some applause, not a belch, okay? I was asked today to speak about relationship capital, the importance of building healthy relationships for women of color. And I think that it's very, very obvious that those of you in this room today already know about the importance. I don't need to spend any time talking about the importance of productive relationships in the sisterhood, because they're necessities. But sometimes our lives get so busy and we're moving so fast that we just need to pause for a moment and reflect on some of the relationships between sisters, which have in fact changed the course of entire industries and the course of communities. And perhaps as we reflect on these relationships and these stories, we just might leave this conference today with a renewed dedication to the advancement of our sisterhood. I want to start with a relationship that is sometimes described as quite confrontational and controversial, but it depends on who's telling the story. However, this story is about two Black women, both of whom were totally successful, game-changing, pioneering, door-opening, generated millions and millions and millions of dollars before people even knew what $1 million was about. Brilliant, hard-working sisters who were not only in the same business, but also were in business with each other at one time. I want to take a look at the success that these two Black women achieved, one of whom everyone in this room knows her name, Madam C.J. Walker. But how many of you all know the name Annie Turnbow Malone? Raise your hand if any of you know anything about Annie Malone. Not one hand raised. One hand? One hand. Oh, two. Oh, yeah, busy bee, I know. All right. Thank you. Be prepared, please, to hear a very interesting story as we look back about a relationship and a competition with numerous similarities, both in products, sales, and lifestyles. Both Annie and Sarah is Madam C.J. Walker's real name, were born to enslaved parents. Both had limited formal education. Both had ex-husbands who had been employed in their businesses during the time that they were married to them. Both women started out selling their products and services door to door. Both became international businesswomen. And both Annie and Sarah were personally responsible for the generation of tens of thousands of jobs for women of color. If you combine the two payrolls of these two women at the height of their success, Annie and Sarah had issued nearly 250,000 paychecks annually combined. In 1900, Annie Malone was selling her own manufactured hair care products in Brooklyn, Illinois. In need of a larger Black consumer population, Annie moved to St. Louis in 1902, where she hired, trained, and motivated to an unbelievable level her very first staff. In 1904, Sarah Breedlove, who was not yet Madam C.J. Walker, also moved to St. Louis, where her brothers were barbers. Sarah went to work for Annie Malone, selling her formula for hair care products in St. Louis. In 1905, Sarah moved to Denver, Colorado, and continued selling the hair products that were made personally by Annie Malone, who had an interest in chemistry. It was in Denver where Sarah Breedlove married Charles Walker and labeled herself and her new product line, Madam C.J. Walker. Both women were extremely generous and caring with their staffs and their communities. Both women were credited with being the first female self-made millionaire in America. However, tax and estate records dispute that fact. In 1920, records show that Annie Malone paid $40,000 in personal income tax, reportedly the highest tax paid by any resident in the entire state of Missouri at that time. When Madam C.J. Walker died 1 year earlier, in 1919, her estate was estimated at $600,000. The New York Times had reported that during an interview with her 2 years prior to her death, she had said, quote, "I am not a millionaire yet, but I hope to be sometime," end of quote. Oftentimes in stories like this, a little yeast is added to the story. But we as women sometimes, especially in today's culture, get more engaged in looking at the rivalry, the tension, or the jealousy that may have existed between the two. It is oftentimes more sensationalistic for us to focus on how one may have tried to outdo the other, on whether they resented each other being in the same business and denied each other's success. However, regardless of which one was the first or which one was the richest, I believe that it's far more important for us to recognize how this relationship changed the entire hair care industry and financially empowered tens of thousands of women of color. Both of these women were great. However, one had a better PR agent than the other. One other thing that both these women shared in common was a friendship with Mary McLeod Bethune, which is a perfect segue for us to reflect on the relationship of Mary McLeod Bethune, her friendship and mentorship of none other than the great Dr. Dorothy Height. Mary McLeod Bethune was the confidant, friend, and advisor to Presidents Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, not to mention that she was the closest and bestest friend and traveling companion to First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. In the 1950s, Harry Truman appointed her to a National Defense Committee in Washington, D.C. The same was true for Dr. Height in relationship to every president, from Dwight D. Eisenhower to Jimmy Carter to Bill Clinton to Barack Obama, with both the Bushes and a Reagan thrown in for good measure. President Obama said in a speech in D.C. one day that his first term, he saw Dr. Height running around the White House so much that he wondered if she had a secret branch office in the White House, because he didn't go too many days without seeing Dr. Height and her hats going down the hallway in front of him. Mary Jane McLeod founded the Bethune-Cookman College. Dorothy Irene Height was a founder of the National Women's Political Caucus, which changed how women are viewed in America with Gloria Steinem and Shirley Chisholm. Both women were educators, activists, and feminists during a time when women were to be seen and not heard, literally. Although Dr. Height was one of the big six of the civil rights movement, she was not allowed to speak at the March on Washington. But when you look at the footage, you will see her standing next to Dr. King during his entire speech. Bethune met Height for the first time in 1937 at the Harlem YWCA, where she and First Lady Roosevelt were touring the facility. Height had left social work to join the staff at the Y, where she remained for several decades and is credited with being the architect and the engineer of the desegregation of all Ys in the United States. Once Dorothy heard about the workings of the National Council of Negro Women directly from the founder herself, Mary McLeod Bethune, she started volunteering with Bethune and became her mentee. For nearly 20 years, Dr. Height worked along as a volunteer helping Bethune to build the National Council of Negro Women, and then assumed its leadership once Bethune retired to Florida and died in 1955. One of Dr. Height's last speeches before an audience of thousands was at her annual Uncommon Heights Award ceremony when she presented Oprah Winfrey with the Uncommon Height Crystal Award. During Oprah's acceptance speech, she thanked Dr. Height for changing the course of American history, for empowering women, and for improving the lives of people of color throughout the world. I know that Mary McLeod Bethune was standing in heaven looking down smiling, because that acceptance speech, if you had changed out the name Dr. Height for Mary McLeod Bethune, everything Oprah said was true of both of these great women. Now, to bring it more into contemporary times, I want to talk about two sisters working together, helping each other, while at the same time changing the course of an entire industry and inspiring people of color, particularly women, to empower themselves and to uplift their communities. So let's take a quick look at the friendship and working relationship of Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King. Both women worked in Baltimore at WJZ-TV at the same time during the mid-'70s. Mid-'70s were not a particularly welcoming time for women in media, particularly not for Black women, although the civil rights movement had forced radio and television stations to hire people of color. I know this history very well because this is when I was starting my career in the nation's capital. DC and Baltimore have always had a competitiveness between their two communities, and both communities have always been overwhelmingly African American. The folks in DC called Baltimore folks country and referred to them as Bamas. The Black folks in Baltimore said that the brothers and sisters in DC were all snobs or hustlers, and sometimes both. Oprah arrived at WJZ-TV in 1976 to anchor the 6 o'clock news, the same year that Gayle King graduated from the University of Maryland and became a reporter. During these days, Gayle was heavy and Oprah was thin. They were both born in 1954. Both have Gayle in their names, although spelled differently. Their friendship was one of mutual interest in the same industry, shared experiences, similar professional challenges, and most importantly, the willingness to look out for each other and have the other's back. For nearly 40 years, they have remained friends, confidants, and sisters, as close as blood. They both dominate their respective areas of media and both generate tens of millions of dollars collectively together and individually. I totally get the friendship and dedication to each other's lives and careers, because many a day, I have wished that I had a sister friend who could understand exactly what I'm talking about when I'm seeking advice and or support while dealing with the oppressive, demeaning, disrespectful, biased, and white old boy network that still owns and controls the media in the United States of America. How many of you saw that woman get $20 million because of discrimination at Fox? All right, $20 million, all right? So it wasn't just back in the 70s when Gayle and Oprah was starting, it's still going on today. Oprah says, quote, "I understand why people think we're gay. She said this in the August 2000 issue of O magazine. She said, they think we're gay because there isn't a definition in our culture for this type of bond for two black women to have. She said, they question, how can we possibly be this close if it were not sexual? End of quote. But Lord knows there should be a term. There should be a name, a definition for our ability to love and nurture another woman's growth and development. Without it having to be defined as sexual. Our sisterhood bond has existed since the beginning of time. It just hasn't always been on TV and social media. So the question this afternoon is, how do you develop genuine sister-friend relationships in business and in life? How do you forge partnerships that are mutually beneficial, like the 6 women that we've been talking about, build on trust and devoid of ulterior motives? And how do you do it without getting on the other one's nerves? Because you know we have short nerves when it comes to our sister friends. The answer is not simple, especially not today. I tend to believe that relationships are a natural outgrowth of consistent interaction over time. They can't be forced and they can't be rushed. So the question you need to ask yourself today is, whom is it that you're constantly engaging and why? Think about the women that you have relationships right now today. How did you become acquainted? And what took your relationship to the next level? Sometimes it's just an inexplicable connection that you share that grows into something special. Oftentimes, it's a bond that develops over time and is forged as you weather the peaks and the valleys that life presents. The truth is, you never know which is going to be when you meet a sister for the first time. But rest assured, you will know who your true sister friends are when times are rough. I want to offer a few suggestions to you about developing business relationships within the sisterhood. First and foremost, look to individuals who share your passions. It's much easier to connect with others when you share similar interests. Find companies and organizations that do what you love. Reach out to people within them and find out how you may be of assistance and service to them, especially if you know that you have a skill or talent that they could possibly use. That's how Terry got hired. All right. And please, my sisters, do not be afraid of the F word, free. Offer your services free of charge when you're first trying to get your foot in the door. And pray that they become so dependent on your skill set that they want to start doing business with you, and you look up one day and she's not only your friend, but she's your business partner. This leads to my second suggestion. Volunteer. Walk through the door with a give rather than a take attitude. When you are giving, people are just naturally disarmed. They let their guards down, and you can then be presented with an opportunity to mutually get to know each other. Be faithful to your commitment. Work as if you're being paid for it. Be friendly and get to know everyone with whom you work. Smiles and how are you and you look beautiful are free. Offer them generously, and you may soon find yourself as a member of the team. Be intentional about not only attending conferences like the one we are today and networking events, but be intentional about getting to know the organizers and the attendees. Among us today are women who are looking to be empowered, women who are looking to empower, and women who are looking to grow their businesses. If you are here for the same reason, guess what? You already have something in common with every woman in this room. Sit with someone you don't know, introduce yourself. Make it a point to follow up. Just don't meet them today, and then the next time you see them, they're at another conference. You remember me? I took a picture with you at the last conference. Say, yeah, and I ain't heard from your ass in 2 years. But now you got an idea for a new television show on TV One. Remember, never forget, business travels on the highway of personal connection. Let me say that to you again. Business travels on the highway of personal connection. Get to know the sisters who are at the top of their game in various industries. Have you ever met Carla Harris, gospel singer and vice chairman of wealth management and senior client advisor at Morgan Stanley? Have you ever met Gina Adams, senior vice president for government affairs, the highest ranking black at Federal Express? What about lovely Warren? That sister's the mayor of the city of Rochester. All three of these women, if they were in this room, would be more than happy to meet and greet you. Most women don't get hung up on their title. Now, there are some exceptions, and we're not trying to get to know their butts, okay? But there are a whole bunch of approachable, successful, nice sisters who would be more than happy to spend a little time with you hearing what it is that you are about. But let me say to you that one of the things that most women of accomplished careers have is very little time. I'm always being told, I want to introduce you to someone, you'll love them, you'll need a new friend for you. I said, I don't need any more new friends. I don't have enough time to spend with my old friends and family. I'm sure it's the same with the overwhelming majority of you in this room. So don't get hung up on the fact that you can't get FaceTime with an accomplished sister that you may be admiring from afar. Because in this day and time, because of technology, you can read their books, you can read their blogs, you can follow them on social media. If they're being honored, send them a note of congratulations and reference the fact, I heard you when you spoke for the Women of Empowerment in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Do a connect, take the initiative, but don't worry about, oh, I gotta see, can I have lunch or can I get invited to something with her? It is possible in this day and time to connect. People get married as a result of the internet, so surely you can find a mentor, okay, all right, or establish a relationship. The other thing that I want to say about relationships, that you never know when that path is going to cross yours. You know, I firmly believe that you have to have faith. And those of you who are faith-based know that we're told that if you have faith and you believe, then when that person you need or that person you want is in time with God's destiny for you, they're going to show up. All right, she's destined to be your partner. She's destined to be your friend. It really is true that what God has set in motion for you, nobody can separate you from it but yourself. But yourself. So keep up that faith. Realize that if you need someone to come into your life, prepare yourself to receive them. But also remember that you have to be the type of sister friend that you desire to have. You just can't be desirous. I have an old saying, you got to bring more to my dinner table than just an appetite. You've got to be that same way with cultivating relationships. The 6 women that we have reflected on this afternoon all had visibility, so it's possible for us to look to them for example and inspiration. We're grateful to Madam C.J. Walker, Annie Malone. I hope all of you will Google her and realize that this great sister is unsung. Mary McLeod Bethune, Dr. Dorothy Height, Oprah Winfrey, and Gayle King. We thank these sisters for the roles that they have pioneered for all of us. We know that we too can achieve our missions if we believe and are willing to roll up our sleeves and work for it, because we see that they have done it. There's so many other incredible sisters that we could be here for another year just talking about partnerships with Black women that have created and changed history. The 3 sisters that founded the Empowerment Institute, the Women's Empowerment Institute, are among 3 of the greatest women in our society today. And we salute Bernadette, Cathy, and Michelle. Thank you all for your vision, for your hard work, for your class, yourself. All right, we're giving them a standing ovation. Yes, they deserve it. No question about it. Bernadette Norris Weeks, Cathy Eggleston, and Michelle Austin. Pammies, thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you. Incredible. Their union is why we're all here today. Their collective success means that we have succeeded, and so do the collective industries that we serve. Never forget that sister friends are forever, even sometimes when you get disconnected. But you'll know it's for real when you can pick up a conversation that's been dormant for years and pick up where you left off like it was yesterday. And both of you understand exactly what you're talking about. Girl, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, it's been 5 years since we talked. All right, when you can pick right up where you left off, that sister is your true friend. In closing, I'd just like to issue a word of caution. We've got to be extra, extra, extra careful about bad advice, oftentimes from the ones who love us the most, who really think that they're, quote, looking out for us, but are really discouraging us when we're in business. When I was in a sleeping bag on the floor of a radio station, washing up in a bathroom that was a public bathroom, my mother thought that she was really giving me good advice when she said, why don't you give up that crazy dream of owning a media company and go get yourself a good government job? I probably would have been Alcide Hastings' chief of staff. Okay, I probably would have been over there at the Hill, waiting on my government pension. I thank God my mama's 93 years old and I throw it up in her face all the time. Every time I write that check for her care, I say, government wouldn't have done this, mama. Be very careful, because they think that they're consoling you, but they're giving you advice from their perspective. They don't see your vision. They don't see what you see for yourself. They don't understand where you're going. They ain't never been there. My mother had never been in business for herself. My mother was a professional musician, quite accomplished, but since I didn't have any talent, she figured I needed to get a good government job. I said, I got talent, Mama, I just can't sing or dance. So be very, very careful of bad advice and envious others. There ain't nothing you can say to Oprah about Gayle King, and vice versa, and that's the way it should be. When God blesses you with a true and tested sister friend, never forget to protect the relationship. Look out for each other. Celebrate each other's growth and forgive each other's mistakes. We all make mistakes. So remember to be tolerant when necessary and firm when needed. But most importantly, support each other. Change some lives together. But more importantly, generate some money together to fulfill your mission. God bless you and thank you.